Hey there everybody, Travis Bowman here with a piece of retro gaming history on the table today. I figured we'd do a quick overview and maybe have a little bit of a discussion about the Sony PSOne, not the PS number 1, but the PS, spell out the word O-N-E, PS1. So this thing came out in the year 2000, and the original PlayStation 1 came out in 95, so this is a common thing in video game history where you will see consoles kind of make a comeback and they'll come out with a second iteration at the end of the console's life just to try to sell a few more extra units. This is probably one of the cooler ones that has happened. This PS1 has its own screen attached to it right here. It's a teeny tiny little thing, but this is your PS1 with the 5-inch screen and little speakers attached to it. So I got this recently. I didn't have this back when this console was the relevant thing. My older sister did have this console, just not with the screen. I guess we never knew that was a thing at the time. It's super cool to have today. So let's just take a look at this thing. You can see the screen is attached and it's plugged into power right now. Let me go ahead and unplug this guy. So it's actually a very, very teeny tiny console. You know, it kind of fits in the palm of your hand. Now on the back, it's attached by these two screws. Now if you had a coin or a long enough thumbnail like I do, I play fingerstyle guitar and play a lot of video game music, so I've got acrylic nails on my right hand. That's a whole other thing. You take those screws off and that's how you take this thing off here. Now the cool thing about this is the fact that you have got a headphone jack as well as your typical AV multi-out. The PlayStation 1, as you probably are very well aware of, it outputted composite video, but something that you might not be aware of is the fact that it actually outputs beautiful RGB video quality. That goes with the original PlayStation as well as the PS1 that we see here. So we're looking at it and it's a very, very small screen, and in fact I've got my cell phone here next to it and it's really teeny tiny by comparison. It's kind of laughable now, but back then this was actually a really, really cool thing for a kid to have, considering that if we look back far enough, this is almost 25 years ago at this point in the year 2000. Most households only had one TV. They had a TV in the living room. To have something like this was really futuristic for the time, and to be able to say, hey, I want to play the PlayStation, but you know, other members of your family are currently using the TV for other things, no problem. You could just slap this screen on and go sit in your room and play your PlayStation. It's a really cool thing, really cool design, and I love this clamshell. I mean, it just fits so perfectly, and you got your rubber feet right there, so it's not going to damage anything. I was really, really happy to get this, considering that this screen, I wouldn't say rare, but it's definitely getting up there in price, and I think the reason for that is this is such a wonderful screen to kind of cannibalize for other projects. People are always trying to make handheld versions of things. This being that 5-inch screen, it's probably a very, very good candidate for a lot of that. So these used to be pretty cheap back in the day, and I think people just realized that early on, so they bought them all up and kind of cannibalized them for other projects. But to have one in this great a condition, I mean, the screen is beautiful. I found this on a Facebook Marketplace find. This wasn't like a garage sale or anything like that. The guy knew what he had and knew what he was selling. He was very open to offers, and I made him an offer, and it was much less than his original asking price, and he decided to go for it, and boy am I glad that he did. Looking on eBay, these screens alone by themselves are upwards of $100, $150, sometimes $200, depending on the day, I suppose. But let's turn this guy on and see what we're looking at. Okay, so let's get this power cable plugged in. There we go. Flip open the lid and turn this guy on. I think I have a game in here. Gotta love those old school disc grinding noises. I'm sure you guys could hear that, hopefully. The speakers, I feel like people are really kind of sleeping on these speakers because this is at half volume. I turn it all the way up here. It's actually pretty loud for what it is. You'll notice that we've got the plus and minus over here for your volume, and over here we've got the same thing for your brightness. I'll turn that guy up as much as I can, just for giggles here. It's gonna be a little difficult to tell on camera. I'm gonna turn this down. Getting up close and personal with this guy, the picture quality is actually pretty freaking outstanding. And I know that it's only a 5-inch screen, so that kind of sucks. But the colors and everything are really super nice on this monitor. I can just imagine back in the day how awesome this must have been for the kid that was lucky enough to get this sort of thing. So there's some Die Hard trilogy. Why don't we try one of my favorites? Some Soul Blade, precursor to one of my favorite fighting games, which would be Soul Calibur. Pop this guy in, close it on up, turn it back on. And then it fires right up. Let's get a little up close and personal with this so you can see what I'm talking about as far as the picture quality. And I've got the brightness up pretty much all the way at this point. It's really good, man. It looks really, really awesome. So if you've never seen one of these before, I hope this kind of opened your eyes to it a little bit, give you a little information about what it would be like if you actually had one for yourself. You know, today, like I said, this is kind of a laughable thing for most people because there are so many different ways to play PlayStation 1 games, whether it's on your PlayStation 5, your PlayStation 4. There are several methods to be able to play those games on older systems, even like the PS2 and the PS3. You can play these games in several different handheld form factors. You can get the entire PlayStation 1 library on your Steam Deck if you wanted to. That's why a lot of people would consider this kind of laughable, but I just think it's cool. It's a part of gaming history, and it's interesting to see where Sony was all those years ago versus where they are now. It's a pretty big difference. If you were to pick this up today, would you actually use the screen? That depends on the person, but honestly, while my wife is watching TV, I have busted this thing out and just kind of set it in my lap with the controller and everything and just played through a couple rounds of Soul Blade, or even jump into some Legend of Dragoon. It doesn't really matter which game, honestly. I mean, they all play the same. They play exactly the way that you're seeing it on the screen right now. All you really need is the power cable. If you've got the power taken care of, then you're good to go. You don't have to worry about your video cable, obviously, and you just need a controller. But these days, they've got wireless PlayStation controllers that you could throw in there. And the cool thing about it is that you can still use that video out while you're viewing everything on the screen. So if you've got an RGB cable and a decent upscaler, you could display both at the same time if you wanted to. When it comes to old school video games, hardware is always more important to me than software. And if I can find something kind of cool and niche like this, odds are I'm gonna pick it up. And this is no exception. I found it at a great price, couldn't resist, and now I have it. And it's a wonderful piece of gaming history. Anyway, I just thought I'd make this video for those of you that were curious about the PSOne, PSONE, and this really super cool attachable screen that it had. Anyway, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I really appreciate you checking it out. I've got several other videos about retro gaming stuff like this on my channel, as well as some video game music. I play a lot of video game music on an instrument called the harp guitar, so if you're interested in checking that out, I highly encourage you to do so. Thanks very much for subscribing, and I'll catch you guys at the next video. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.